Yep. Yep. Look at that. Labels, I think. Maybe. Did I spell somebody's name wrong?
Oh, is that what you were typing? I saw you typing, and now I'm looking over at the thing. Look at that. That is amazing.
Did I spell anybody's name wrong?
I'm looking. You spelled my name right. It's pronunciation that you have problems with, I think. But
yeah.
Yeah, look at that.
All right.
That's cool. And you put all our little Twitter handles.
Yeah.
So there was an event today, right?
That's true.
Which I didn't get to watch, but I saw some tweets about it. Like I guess is it called a Surface event, or is it just a Microsoft device event? I don't know.
I will be honest. I don't specifically know how it was titled. It was definitely an event showing off some new Surface hardware.
Can I share my screen? I got their website up.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Let me do this. We didn't practice this, but let's just see what happens. There it is. Can you see that on?
I do see your screen now. We're going to transition over to it right now.
I don't know how So so I don't know much about it, but I heard about this baby here in the middle, which I guess is called am I right about this calling the Surface Laptop Studio or something like that? Maybe we can.
Yeah, I think if you scroll down a little bit, they got all the names with them.
I would think they would have it somewhere. This is Surface Studio. Maybe it's not available. So this is where things are available to order, right?
Right, but so you should see
here it is, Surface Laptop Studio. It's just not in form factor. Let me see if they show it like switch over. So here it is. Now this is a cool design right here, if you ask me. Let's see it in action. I don't know how well this will animate.
So there's that mode there, which I forget if that's what they called stage mode. And again, I'm telling you, I was like you. I read an article and I watched a little bit of somebody playing, and I think that was about all of 30 seconds. And I was like, oh man, this is happening in the middle of work. So,
well, to me, it's sort of like, it looks like, that sort of combination is obviously what they're going for, right? I mean, it's a laptop in one mode, but it's got that Surface Studio look. Isn't that what that other device is called, Rich? The big Surface Studio, the one that like has that tilted monitor.
Right, but that's also like a 28-inch monitor, right?
Oh yeah,
it's huge.
Right. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that like that angled screen or whatever is sort of what we're looking for, and it just seems like it's a cool way to, let's see if they're going to do it right here on this video. Oh, there it is. Look at this. That's cool.
This feels like airplane movie mode, right? Like, I don't need the keyboard, but I want to bring the screen closer to me and maybe at a comfortable angle. You can apparently still take like the Surface Pen and maybe work on it.
Well, yeah, they're doing it on the screen right now. The Surface Pen, still works and all that. So I don't know how well this is.
There it is. It folds completely flat too.
Yeah, and
it folds completely flat. Look at that.
But gives it enough of that little angle, right? It's not like writing flat on the desk. You still have that little tilt you had in the Surface Books.
Yeah,
and I love the pen being attached underneath. So it's
a new design of the pen. It looked like. And so it comes attached underneath? Is that where it was?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's the same one, but it's the Surface Pro X, I think it was. It was the one that was the device that I believe it was mainly an LTE device, but it had a thin pen that went in the keyboard. So when you unfolded the keyboard out and kind of took it out of tented mode, kind of took it from being bound against the monitor or the screen part of it. There was a pen hiding in there, and it was actually a flat pen.
So here it is. In this picture, you can see that it's got that little angle to it, which is pretty cool. It's probably a funny thing. I mean, I'm not a designer of hardware, and I wasn't there in the room, but I could imagine could you imagine a conversation where someone goes, "Well, we want to do this, but what are we going to do with this hinge? Like, how do we get it out of the way?" And someone goes, "Wait, if we just leave it there, it prevents it." It just provides this perfect little angle. I mean, that's probably not the way it happened, but maybe it did. I don't know. It's cool, right? And look at that. There's a cool shot for with the.
It's definitely pretty cool.
Yeah, it seems like a good device, and I didn't even look at the specs. Let's look at the tech specs. So it's a 14.4 inch touchscreen. Let's see, 32 gigabyte RAM and a 11th gen Intel Core H series processor. So I'm not really that familiar with those things. I think of like i7, i5, right? So I don't know about H. I guess H is probably even better than those.
Well, it's an 11th gen, right? But it's the mobile version. I can't tell you if the H means that or if it's or what, but definitely, for a long time now, all these chip vendors have had to have mobile versions. Even when they say here that you can get it with an RTX 3050 Ti, that's a mobile RTX 3050 Ti. It's not going to be like a 3050 Ti you put in your desktop, which, I mean, these things are thin and light. There's only, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's amazing to me they work at all. It's just,
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
I'm interested in the pen.
I
I saw a bit where it was described as feeling like you're writing on paper because there's a little force feedback motor of some kind in the pen. But I don't know much more than that.
Yeah.
Other than, I guess, when you're writing, cool. It gives you a feedback that makes you feel like it's instead of where I can sort of see what they're saying. When you use a pen today, you feel it, but you don't quite feel it like pen to paper.
Yeah.
I wonder though, there must be a whole generation of people now that are like, pen to paper. What I want it to feel like finger to screen. That's what I'm used to.
Why would you want to do that? Yeah.
People did this. So
yeah. Well, so I mean, we don't know a whole lot about that, right? I was just thought it would be fun to talk about that for a couple minutes, right? And all be like ooh and ah over the new hardware that none of us have, unless one of you guys are not telling me something.
I know nothing.
Be pretty cool. Yeah, pretty slick looking devices. It's cool the way they keep innovating on these things. Coming up with, I mean, obviously we know the hardware gets better, right? But these little design changes, it's cool. You think like, what else can you do? It's just, it's a laptop. What else can you do to it? But people get paid to think of these ideas, right?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, there's some other news. I don't know. While I'm talking here, if it's up on Philly.net's meetup. I'm gonna guess that it's not.
Okay, we can.
But I believe that the first Wednesday of October is what we're hearing for the return of Philly.net.
Net.
It's not on
the
site.
Right about that Philly-net? I think I got it right. Yeah. Nothing on here.
Yeah. Look, the same thing can be said of the Dev Talk Show meetup, unfortunately. But I think.
But yeah. You're right. That's the plan, is to October 6th. I'm not sure what time. I'm not sure where they're planning to host it yet. Hopefully, before we go live again next week, we'll get some more information around that. But definitely, Bill is planning to do a session on Visual Studio 2022, .NET 6, and C# 10.
Yeah.
And then I think after that, we're doing one on the 20th. So 2 weeks later, where we're doing a session on GitHub and GitHub Actions. And then I think, Chris, you got one lined up for November, right?
Yeah. It was interesting getting the schedule, and it had my name in it. And I said, oh, cool, I guess. Which is fine. I think it's time to come out of a little bit of this post-summer haze and say, let's get back to creating some great content and just enjoying the technology we get to work with or just try out, which is just, that's growing so much these days. There's so much to try, and I don't even want to say keep up with, because that's impossible. So just have fun with, I guess. Find something that you think is fun and interesting and go play with it, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you guys are getting that schedule back together, and hopefully I can come up with some kind of content. I don't even know what I would talk about these days, but I didn't know. I don't know if you put my screen up. I got the website up here. Just want to,
Okay. Yeah.
number here.
I'll switch back
Remember,
to it.
yeah. Look at this, right? I actually took a screenshot here and then I drew on it. Look at that. 3,981 members. That is a strong group, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome, right? We're so lucky that we have this community in our area. And I understand that COVID, things have been tough, so Bill's taking it off. But it'd be great to see this group up and going again, and the strength that we've had, the amount of things I learned from this group over the years is it's a lot, So that's cool. Good for Bill.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. So I know that I think it would be presumptuous to jump the gun, but I don't think it's unfair to say that the Philly.net team would like to get back to a code camp, get back to meetings, get back to the things that we're all used to doing.
Yeah, and I think look for when those events that we know are coming in October, November get put up on the Philly.net meetup page. I'm sure there will be some information coming as far as doing a code camp in the near future as well.
Yeah, we know it's hard to do events, right? I don't know if we mentioned here on the show because it probably happened over the summer, but Tech Bash delayed till next year because we were getting a lot of feedback that people were not really easy on the idea of going to a crowded event. Now, on the flip side, I saw KCDC happened, I guess, last week. Looked like they had a successful in-person event, and I'm really glad they were able to do that. I think that with Tech Bash, the problem is we're a little later into the fall, right? And everybody just thinks things are getting worse. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I guess if an event was in August, I think I would have been pretty comfortable going to it. And in September, I think I would have been pretty comfortable going to KCDC too, honestly. But I think everybody's still a little worried about what's going to happen in the fall. And obviously, we're all hoping that get our lives back to normal, but still tough to run these events,
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. So, speaking of diving into things to figure them out, since we don't have events to teach them to us, that's probably the worst segue that we've had in a long time.
I was going a different direction.
Oh, really? What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to play on the interactive side, right? We can't be interactive in person, but hey, we could probably be interactive with our code, right?
That's better.
Let's vote on it.
I should kind of...
Should we restart the show and have Rich
There you go.
bring that in? That was good.
I like Rich's version of that. Yeah, good job.
No, that was good. That was much better. So, a little while ago, for a long time, I've been interested in two projects that were going on. They kind of evolved out of the same idea. A few years ago, we saw, I think it was a few years now, had to have been, I suppose, we saw a beta little project experiment called try.net. It's still out there. You can still use it. You can go get it, and you can essentially have a way to, and I'm pretty sure that it's reached this point where on a web page of your own, you can have some code, and then the person at your site can run the code right there, and it gets compiled and run and everything, and it's pretty cool. And some of the documentation, I think even I'm almost positive. Oh, look, of course I did. Yeah, here it is. Runnable.net code on your site, right? So here's an example right here.
You're going to share your screen on Skype for us?
Oh, yeah. I guess it's not shared on Skype, is it?
Yeah, otherwise we get the delay. It gets a little weird. So
I wonder if this will mess things up. We're going to find out. Hopefully that's okay.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
You can find this at docs.microsoft.com and various places, but right here in this ordinary web page, right, nothing up our sleeves, here's at the .net.microsoft.com site, we have some code that's just going to create a little array and then write each one of them out in an interpolated string, and you click run code and it compiles and it does it. And I suppose just to prove that like nobody's, that it's not just some video, we can type in our names or anything anybody wants. I can change this code any way I want and click run code and it works. And you can it's basically a code runner that you can embed, which I think is pretty cool. It really gives me a ton of ideas for the kind of labs and interactive presentations that have always been famous just at Philly.net, right? Like Philly.net has been doing hands-on labs for 2 decades or more now, since the dawn of .net. So way ahead of its time, considering the idea of now saying like, hey, come to this page and you can follow along in your editor, or you can just do it here. Wouldn't that be cool? So one thing that's a companion to this, I think, because I believe that really kind of the same technology helps power it, is .NET Interactive. Sometime, I think it was a little over a year ago, we had Sarah Dukevich on, and she talked to us about Azure Notebooks, and which basically built on top of Jupityr Notebooks, and this whole concept of I don't, .NET Interactive notebooks are just notebooks. And so if you're not familiar with notebooks, let's see, here's a little bit of a GIF that's showing the idea is notebooks are these documents that are powered by cells of code, but you can also put Markdown in, so they can be sort of like documentation. They could be a step-by-step process that you might want to run, maybe. And it could be useful step-by-step just for your own work. You're like, hey, I'm not here to share this with anybody. I just, instead of writing some full app to do something, I just want to put a little bit of code here, and then I want to run it, get the results, and then write a little bit more code and get the results. But they also can be really nice to be kind of like a living documentation, to say, hey, go grab my notebook, and here's some code you can run to see things happen, and a little bit of documentation in between. And all of this stuff is now available in Visual Studio Code's notebook features. Visual Studio Code apparently supports notebooks natively now. I believe that that's true. The only reason I say is I haven't played with it. What I have played with is the .NET Interactive notebooks.
Right. So just to comment on that, because I think even Sarah's session was really focused on Jupyter Notebooks.
Yes, right.
And kind of using, and oftentimes you use that in like the data analytics, machine learning side of workloads. And the last couple of days been doing an internal training session where we've been doing just that, using Jupyter Notebooks to crunch through some data and run some machine or some algorithms again, or trying to build out some models against that data as well. So those concepts, if you've done anything in the Jupyter Notebook side, it's very similar. And in the Azure Machine Learning, there's a button up there that says edit in Visual Studio Code. So instead of going to the browser, you can basically jump out and have that notebook show up in code, which was the main reason I brought all that up. Sorry.
No, it's cool. It's cool. So Jupyter Notebooks are cool. And I think if we go on to a website that supports them, like I think one of them is like Binder and so on, it's very easy to get in there and get a notebook started that is Python based or F# based. Those are two kernels that I know I always see out there. I think I've seen a C# kernel out there as well. But that's the thing is the notebook concept is extensible. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert on this, but like if any one of us were to write a kernel, we could enable our favorite language or favorite environment. And it's not that, they're not married. The notebooks concept is not tightly coupled or married to any specific language. So I do have a bunch of extensions here, as you can see. This isn't vanilla Visual Studio Code. I did install the .NET Interactive Notebooks extension, because that's what gets the magic that I found really interesting today. What I think is really cool. You have to have .NET 5 SDK installed, and it runs on top of that. And what I thought was really impressive to me, and so here's somebody again, we're talking about exploring things that you don't know a whole lot about, is I really didn't do anything more, and I will make this font much larger here so we can all see a little bit better. I've got, all I did is say new file, right? You know, I love how in Visual Studio Code, by the way, I don't know when this came in, they started adding this little helper of, hey, you know, what language context should I work in? So I'm gonna actually try that. I'm gonna come down here and say I want to try creating a notebook. Let's see if that doesn't work. I think the way I was gonna do it. See, I could say Jupyter. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, here we, yeah, this is what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So they are in here. They are in here. Well, let me show you what I did. I think you can click here to select a language and this list comes up. Or in the lower right corner where it says plain text, this is Visual Studio Code telling you what language mode is this file tab running in, and it's plain text. If I click here, I get the same drop down. And I believe because I have the .NET Interactive extension installed, I can click here and I get, am I going to get the notebook? Maybe not. I know the other way to do this is to create a file with the IPYNB extension, which is what I was going to do. But I didn't do what I wanted, so let's do it that way. Let's say, let me open a folder. Oh, wow, look at that horrible.
Yeah, that's weird.
Impossible to see thing for the viewers, right? It looks great on my screen. But yeah, probably not for you folks, right? I want to put this somewhere where I'll remember later.
Real Japan says, that's the cutest file explorer I have ever seen. Yeah, isn't it cute? Cute little explorer. It's like a tiny little thing.
Yeah, on everybody's screens out there, it's like, forget it, right? So let's say hello, DN Interactive, and the key is, I think, what's the file extension again? IP YNB, and here look at the experience that opened up here. And of course, Visual Studio Code is telling me, hold on, if you wanted to do Python ones, well, I don't have Python installed. I would be happy to do that sometime. But for the purposes of this is a notebook, right? It's an IPYNB file. And here's a little code cell that I can type in. It is currently set to be Python interactive. When I brought my mouse over, if you can see how it highlights a little bit there. What if I click it? Oh, here's that list again. And let's pick C#. Okay, interesting. So what if I come into this little code cell of types and just do something simple like say my name equals Chris. I gotta put a semicolon there, and then I'll use the console. I wonder if I have to open system. I guess we're gonna find out. And let's do an interpolated string, and we'll say
it does. Do you need a console, or will it just write it down there? I think it,
I don't know. So there's a play button here that says execute cell, and oh, it says select the kernel for this. Well, I want the .NET Interactive kernel for this notebook, and it's like, oh, why didn't that work?
Is it the console write line part, or is it the, like you could just run it with the first line and you would get nothing, but you know, see if you get an error.
Oddly enough, when I did this earlier, this all worked. I've actually never seen this error before at all. That's enabled. Error executing cell, unable to get interactive launch options. And it says C output, but I'm not seeing any output.
You're not running this in Linux again, are you?
No, this is just on my machine. And everything worked flawlessly. So I wonder if I should just, I don't know, folder again. Oh, I'm still in this folder. Failed to set document metadata. I don't even know what this means. Get interactive launch options.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of following along with you, and it ran fine.
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know. Maybe we have to do this on your machine for some reason.
There you go.
That I can't.
You could close it and open it back up again.
Rich, yours is in .NET Interactive as well?
Yeah, I just followed along with what Chris was doing. I installed the plugin and
That's weird.
Makes you wonder if me messing around with it. Oh, that's interesting. The extension is installing maybe a newer version of .NET Interactive. I wonder if the way I did it before, when I came down in the lower right, I wonder if I kind of bypassed something that was unexpected, right? So
yeah.
You didn't have to include system, did you? Like if I just let's
I did
keep
not.
this simpler. Let's just keep this simpler.
Yeah, I mean that's just,
okay.
Yep.
So
Boom.
I think that most likely what I did, I wonder if I could repeat that by coming in and saying like, oh, let me go to the lower right and pick the file type. And to me, that sounds like an interesting issue to open and maybe, heck, that might be an opportunity to contribute, right? So if I...
It's the same problem.
Did you have the same problem or did someone else?
No, I'm saying you could see if you can reproduce it later,
right.
and then if it's exactly the same way, that'd
Exactly.
be a great bug to put in.
Okay, so this is kind of neat, right? I can run a little bit of code right here, and then you say, okay, well, what else might I do? Well, imagine, like, it might be interesting to me anyways, is what if you were trying to teach somebody something, or you wanted to write some documentation. So I clicked plus on Markdown, and now I have a Markdown section. And I can say, like, the preceding code uses the console write line method, right? And then maybe I would even like have like a link to, I'm not gonna actually go find the link, but I could do that. And then I could, if you're familiar with Markdown, this would be the link out to that out in the world. And when I click stop editing, this is in Markdown, right? So somebody might open this notebook and they might get some of my comments on what we're doing, or they could go off to what I'm sending them so they can learn more, things like that. And I think you could even just teach C# this way. Or what our friend Jeff Fritz is doing is, I've noticed, I don't know if it's every episode, but I've noticed when they does the C# Learning Monday show on the Visual Studio channel, he will open up a notebook and teach C# out of it, and then commit that up to GitHub somewhere, and then anyone else could bring that down, bring it up in notebooks, and have that same kind of interactive step-by-step experience instead of having to open up and change the code a little bit at a time. It's like I could just go a little bit at a time. And I think that's pretty cool. So since go ahead if you were gonna.
I'm curious, and maybe this is a bad idea or a dumb question, but if you open this this file in Notepad, is it going to look like what we? I'm just curious to know, like, what does this actually look like as a file?
I think that's a good question, and I wanted to see if there was another way, if you could view this.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking you could just open it up and.
Sometimes I agree with you. Sometimes in these editors, you can see the IPYNB, but since that isn't super obvious, let's go ahead and do what you said, and just bring it up in something simple, right? And when I say that, I'm like, okay.
Open with, yeah. There you
Oddly
go.
enough, I don't have Notepad just sitting there ready to go. So let me bring it over here. Here is what a notebook looks like. So
Metadata.
There's metadata, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's your lines of code. So it just says source. That's interesting. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. And you could source control this, right? But certainly to be the most useful, you want it to be rendered. But I get your point, because like a Markdown file is somewhat readable. I guess it has some of the same issues a Markdown file does, in that if you really get deep into what you're doing with Markdown, it stops looking like just text you can read, and maybe it looks like a tree that you're kind of building for the viewer, or a bulleted list or something like that. So again, go ahead.
If it's like a C# file, right? It's a text file, right? It's just the extension tells the UI what to do with it, right? And the same thing here. It's just a text file. And because it's just a text file, of course, it's going to play really well with source control and diff tools and things like that, right? And to me, that's sort of an important attribute, I guess I would say, of a system like this, that you want it to be a text file at the end of the day. It's not some proprietary file type that we can't look at and read.
Yeah, yeah. So let me continue exploring here a little bit. I would like to write a little bit more code. I know this isn't the most exciting code that anyone ever wrote, but what if I reference that variable from a prior cell? I mean,
I was just going to ask you if you could do that, dude. I was just going to ask you that.
And I'm going to even kind of be crazy about it here and do it all in this interpolated string. And it does work. The my name variable is persisting beyond that cell, right? That's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
You could see yourself building up the tutorial, right?
Yeah. Chris, do you have to, now you ran the first block like a couple minutes ago, right? But is that necessary? Like if you just came in here, I guess maybe it's like clearing the outputs. You know what I mean? I'm wondering if you would.
Yeah, I teased a little bit, right? Because you saw my mouse sneaking up here.
I did see you headed there, and I'm like, oh.
So if I clear it, and I love that question. So now the question that Andy's asking is, I think you're asking a couple questions. One is, you might be wondering, is my name still filled with a value? And the next question is well, let's say it is or it isn't. If I run this one, is it gonna, like, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
So, and I think this is a great question. And so in this case, it did run it. Now, I'll be honest, I actually wasn't 100% sure what the answer was going to be, because I thought perhaps clearing the outputs would clear the engine, which I think you can do.
Right.
I think you can do that.
Chris, what's interesting is it must have run it, but yet it didn't put the output on the screen. It didn't show a console write line, hello, the first write line.
Oh, well, so here's what I'm not convinced. I am not convinced that we cleared the .NET Interactive session of this name. I'm not convinced of that. Gotcha. And to kind of give you an idea, let's try this, right? I am not going to run this.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
but
good.
let's run this again, and it still says Chris.
So
that's my guess. My guess is that even though we said clear outputs, that did not restart the session. Now, I'm going to look for a restart session. Here we go. Restart the current notebook's kernel. Look at that.
Yeah.
So let's do what you just said.
Look how easy that was for you to find.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar...
you went to, what window did you hit?
I think that's a great question. So if you're not familiar with Visual Studio Code, sometimes if you just kind of want to, like, what commands are available to me? If you do Control-Shift-P on Windows and Linux, and on Mac, I think it's Command-Shift-P, but I'm not 100% sure. You get what's called the command palette. And the command palette, you can look at every possible command in all of Visual Studio Code. But what code tends to do is it's pretty smart about saying, like, well, you're in a .NET Interactive tab, So let me show you the commands from the .NET Interactive extension. So the extension writer has a command here that says restart the kernel, right? Restart the current kernel. I could bind that to a key if I wanted to. I don't see a key binding here, so it looks like I would have to do it this way unless maybe I said, I'm sick of that, I'm going to bind something. But just to give you a quick example, here is another command. I could start a live share session, right? And I can see that Control-Alt-J does that. So that's what's cool. I'll start over again. And boy, this is where I really need to go install that cool extension, right? Is Control-Shift-P on Windows and Linux brings up this command palette, and I can start searching for stuff that's relevant to this tab. So for example, if I say C#, I'm not in a C# tab. I know I'm in a notebook tab that happens to be the C# kernel, but I'm not going to get anything from the C# extension. Visual Studio Code's like, yeah, you're not working in that. But it is showing me other stuff too. It's like, well, like whatever. And if I scroll down, I can get to things that other extensions might have. But it's not what they put at the top. At the top, it tries to be context sensitive, which I think is helpful. It means I didn't have to look very hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. We did a couple things there. We could do something interesting. Is this interesting? If we said,
wait, now that you cleared the kernel,
yeah.
if you run the second line, does it error out?
I would expect it to, but let's see. Yeah, it says, look, my name doesn't exist. Yeah. And it even comes up squiggly.
Which is kind of what you expect, right? There's no magic. It's not doing anything behind the scenes. It's expecting that thing to be loaded up in memory.
Right.
And it's not.
Right.
Or something like that, right? Loaded up in the... So, but there is the run all button at the top.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. I was kind of thinking, I think I should be able to do something like this. I should be able to say int sum, and then say like int x, int y, and then say return x plus y. Should be able to do this. And even though that squiggly didn't go away there, I should be able to run that. And I don't get any kind of real indication. But now that sum is defined, I could come down here and do something like, boy, is it going to let me do this? How cool is that? I'm even getting Intellisense where it's saying like, oh, you're calling the sum function? I know all about that. It's takes 2 ints and returns an int. And then I run it and it works. So
I want to write something like this for my job. This is cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like just writing this extension, I guess, is really what it is. Like, this is cool.
Yeah, and it's using the C# kernel to get some things done. So let's try something interesting that we haven't explored so far. Let me create another code cell. But I'm going to come over here, and now let me tell you, I've never tried to do this. So here we go, live, right? If I come over here and I say select cell language, and I'm going to pick a different language. I'm going to pick HTML. So that's interesting, HTML, okay. Let me create everybody's favorite HTML tag, a div, and I'm going to call it, I'm just going to say, I'm going to have a div with ID some div, and I only want to give it a different name so we don't start using the same names all over the place. And then I'm not even going to put anything in there. That's not all I wanted to do. I also want to say the sum is, because I would like for us to see this. I would like to see some output when I run this cell. So a little bit of HTML, right? A little bit of HTML there. The sum is, and then a div that doesn't have anything in it. So no big deal there. So my question for you, Andy, is, and just don't make the question don't think too much. Let your mind just go to the simplest answer. If you want to modify elements in an HTML DOM, What language do you use?
JavaScript.
JavaScript. Now, granted, I know we could start all kinds of arguments about how we can use any language we want, right? We got WebAssembly.
Doesn't matter. No, you asked a simple question, right? You're basically saying, throw out what's the first thing that comes to mind.
JavaScript, right?
Okay.
Well, look at this. Look at this. .NET Interactive JavaScript. If I create another cell and I click over here to set the cell language mode, and I set it to JavaScript for this cell, well, it turns out that I can say in JavaScript we can declare. Well, let's do this. Let's go back up. Let's go back up to C# land, and let's create an integer, and we'll call it the sum, and it is going to call the sum function and pass in 9 and 4. So we're basically getting a value into that variable, the sum. And .NET Interactive knows about it. It's the sum, great. So I want to get a hold of that. So I'm just gonna call this variable sum value. And I want to try and keep everything on the screen if I can here, but maybe I will have to go back one. Hopefully that's good for everyone. And I say, now here, admittedly, this is .NET Interactive fun, is there is a object that you get in your JavaScript interactive called the interactive object, and it's got a member on it called C#. And if I say get variable and I pass it that variable name, okay.
So it's going to look in all of its C# code, I guess, right? Like, because you could have more than one block. Some of them are C#, some of them aren't. But I assume this is going to kind of look at, say, well, somewhere in our C# stuff, look for this variable, the sum, right?
Yeah, I think the correct way to look at it, and maybe if we remember to look at the architecture diagram later, is there's a C# kernel running. So it's interrogating that kernel. And then, well, what do I want to do here? I want to, if you know your vanilla JavaScript, you can say get element by ID, and that ID was some div, and so now I have that element. And then let's modify its inner. I guess it could be text, it could be whatever. We'll do inner HTML, and we will set that to some value, which is the variable that I declared right here in place, right? Now, clearly, this is a promise. Get variable, in order to go do its work, it must take a little bit of time, or it's like an IO type thing. Or the point is they want you to await it, so you're getting a JavaScript promise. So I use the await keyword, and I get my answer, and let's just see it, right? I click the execute here, and look what happened up here. It got the element from the HTML kernel, and it modified the DOM.
But it modified it back where it lived, like not in. They didn't rewrite it. It went back and found it and modified it, like is what you're saying, and that's cool.
Yeah, there's like an HTML DOM running, and this code is interacting with it and saying, well, let me go get that variable out from C# land and modify it. So what I'm getting, I could envision creating some interesting interactive modules that start by having you write code, and then maybe they use HTML to graphically display results. It could be graphs. It could be even just ways to help you understand the concept better, because I have this ability to create an HTML cell and then create a JavaScript cell and go interact with that DOM.
That's a slick demo, like a simple demo, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's actually there's a little bit more. You can do interesting things like this. I may not remember how to do all of it here, but fortunately, it won't be too hard for me to look up. So
while you're thinking here, I assume we can load up libraries too. Like, let's say you wanted to use, and we're on JavaScript, so let's just say you wanted to load up like jQuery or something, which is maybe not really in vogue these days, but maybe it is. I don't know, but I assume you could do that, right? I assume that in same space in the .NET, there must be a way to load like like a NuGet package and get things into it, like I'm sure you can get dependencies.
Yes,
Yeah.
but
I'm not asking you to do it.
I may
I'm
not
asking
know
you
how to
do
do all of those things, right?
Yeah.
So, but let me show you something that I think is cool. But I do want to try some of those things. Let me create another cell. This time, just because I want to show off something, I'm not going to bother touching this. But I want to write some F#. So there are commands called magic commands, and they look like this. They have a pound sign. I'm sorry, a hash, and an exclamation mark, and then you can put the name of a kernel here. So you can put F#, you can put C#, you spell out sharp. You can put JavaScript there. And so anyways, what I'm saying here is it's like I'm saying, hey, I want to go into F# now. And this might answer a question that you might have asked a second ago. Or we're about to ask. I know that F# and C# are both .NET languages, but in this particular case, this is using the F# interactive, which is a REPL that's already supplied with the .NET language. So I actually have to share that C# variable from the C# kernel. I think my brain told me when I first started using this, my brain said, oh man, that is so cool. Like, they're both .NET languages, so shouldn't I just be able to? But no, you see that I have to go share from the C# kernel, right?
Okay, but that's a reasonable,
yeah,
thing to do,
man,
right? It's not complete.
Maybe that's something that can be changed later. I don't know. All I know is I thought that was pretty cool. And so if I write this tiny bit of C# here, and let me see, am I doing this right? Let me think.
F#.
I'm sorry. Thank you. This tiny bit of F# here, and oh man,
Single quote?
am I doing this wrong, or
is it single quotes there?
I don't think it is. You know what it might be is that I might be putting in parentheses when I didn't need to, or
Oh yeah. That might be it. I thought I saw something with the quotes in the comment, but yeah, I think you're probably right.
yeah.
Look
So
at that.
remember the sum from back up in C# land? Like here it is. I can access it from F# in F# cell. So like, why? So like, why is this useful? There's a couple reasons why it's useful. One is, what if you are not in an editor that has this slick cell changing, kernel changing language mode in it? Or maybe the renderer that you're in is like you're working in some different environment, and you just make a quick change of the code and you want to see it work, and you're using something that's going to render the cells, but you don't get to control it. You don't get to sit here and go click, 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 right? Because the notebooks are standard, the IPYNB format. Just because we're using it today in a slick interface inside Visual Studio Code doesn't mean that the renderer you look at tomorrow, it might be just some website, and the website's like, yeah, I'll just kick off every cell, boom, 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 boom. So I'm
another cool feature. There's some definitely cool stuff in here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, what other stuff have I done? I feel like, is it my imagination that I have switched languages in the middle of the same cell? Maybe that's what's jogging my memory here.
Hashbang. I think you got those in
around. Yeah.
I'm calling that Hashbang, by the way. I don't know if that's a thing.
No, you're right. So if I say printf and I say, look, the output's going to be some kind of integer-based thing, and we call sum and we pass 5 and 12. Let's go run this cell, and it didn't work. But I think it tried. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think it tried to work. That's just me being a little bit novice to F#. I think.
Well, in F#, it's possible that it doesn't understand sum. So maybe you need to do that same import thing.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's exact. See how it didn't pull that here? I don't know that I can do that. I mean,
maybe you can.
I'm boy, wouldn't this be something?
Changed.
Nah, it didn't work.
No.
But I was hoping for a second there. However, we do know that like if I were to take a value here and say like int first cell sum, and we're pretty sure that this works pretty well. That I can take this, share it here. So I'm still in the same cell, right? And I'm saying, yeah, just go grab that value. I think this is going to work. That did work. So maybe there's a use for, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning is for why you'd go one way or another. But here I am within the same cell, shifting kernels, sharing from the kernel, and using the finished product, right?
Yeah, but sum is in the same cell also.
I agree with you. I agree. I think the clue here, for me, this is the clue, is watch the complaint. Is it complains saying, oh, it didn't, it tried to import it, but then I think what you have to do is you have to actually try to use it. And so let's say like let, whatever, equal sum 7 and 5. That what happens, I believe that interactive is saying here, like, look, you don't have a value or a constructor defined as sum. Sure, there's a method, but I don't know what you're talking about. So I just don't think that, my opinion here is I don't think that .NET Interactive passes methods.
All right. So we've got this like hashbang F# thing. Is there like an end to like say, okay, I'm done with F# and I want to like go back to my native language or something like that? Or do you just switch back? That's all you do.
I agree that that's one way. I don't know that there is another way, but I was curious if maybe Intellisense might show me something.
Interesting. Still, again, not a complaint, you know.
Yeah. But this all works. Yep, that all works, and then we can come back and continue doing all these things, and we can work in JavaScript, and we can work in F#, and we can get values from each other's kernels. There are it's certainly not like, it's not a perfect world, but there are still some pretty cool things you can do, like let's see. I know there is another. Well, here's some stuff that I can pull up kind of from their docs. Oh, I don't really want this here. I think there's a way that I can move this around. Can I? Yeah. I can grab the cell, move it to the bottom. And now this cell's at the bottom. Is you can basically store into the kernel, as it were, values. So if I make a cell like this, and we say that person is, boy, now I gotta remember my JSON here. And what else? Okay, that should be good. I think if I execute this, okay, now I can go to another cell and I can say, let's share some JSON, right? Wait, no. I did the magic thing wrong. But you got to throw on a little. You got to throw on a little parameter here to say what you're doing. Did I do this backwards again? I don't think I did this right. Okay, now that worked, but we didn't do anything with it. So in C sharp, I'm not going to be in JavaScript this time. In C sharp, we say, hey, I want to parse this thing using, a library that a lot of folks have probably used to parse JSON, right? And look, I'm getting IntelliSense on it.
I love the IntelliSense, and that's
that actually is like really wow. And then let's just say I don't know if this is going to print this out. I might have to write another line of code. Yeah, it looks like I do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I would there it is. I was waiting for that IntelliSense to come across. And here it is. Boom. So I could like set a value and then use it later, even though I'm in a totally different language. So I could kind of see, I wonder if there's an interesting way to do like some interactive exploration of your web API, maybe. I don't know. Or maybe your client that handles what is returned by a web API. So you don't actually like fire up this whole integrated test. You're just kind of like, well, let's see if the client can handle this return value. And oh yeah, sure, it did the right thing. Yep, that was cool. That's what I wanted.
I was just looking at I just Googled this, but like using NuGet packages is really easy too.
Yeah. That's actually what I was kind of wondering there is if we could quickly look up.
Yeah, do you want me to? I could just read it to you. I mean, this is how easy it would be. Like it's a magic command. According to this, it's just hash R, and then in quotes you say NuGet : like whatever you want to do. You want to try it?
Yeah, sure.
They're basically saying, if you get a code, hashtag hash R, right? And then it's quote NuGet : system.text.json.
Oh, this is the modern JSON one, right?
Yeah, well, right, as an example, right? Now you should have access to it right there. And if you wanted to, you could put a comma and like a version number, but I don't think we need to do that.
Oh, so you can drill in? There's more you could do here to drill in then?
Well, if you wanted to, in the example they show, like comma 4.7.2, like what if you want an older version of,
okay.
You're getting when you're doing what you're doing there,
Yep. All right. So offhand, I'm not going to remember how to use system.text.json. Do you?
That's the tricky part. I mean, I guess you could do JSON dot and see what happens, right?
Here.
So how does it load? Like, how fast will it load that? Like, it doesn't have that NuGet package, does it? Let me look. It doesn't say anything about running it. It just says that's how you specify it.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Okay, so let's run it. And it said, oh, installing packages. Look at that. See that?
You just need to run it to get it to install it, and then you can start typing.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy, though.
Okay, so let's think about this class that I've got here, okay? I've got a person. Well, thinking about it the way this class does is I've got a person, and it's going to have a string. I wonder if I can even do this. I really don't know.
Serialize it or deserialize it?
Yeah, I wonder if this is gonna work, right? Like live streaming, ladies and gentlemen, and all of our friends watching. Okay, so we've got something that might define that, maybe. I don't know. And then let's see. How do you use system text.json? You say JSON
JSON.
serializer. Was it coming up and I was too quick?
I don't know if you need to say JSON serializer. I thought it was just JSON dot deserialize, but maybe I'm wrong. You're not getting any Intellisense there. Just go back to do JSON dot. No, I thought that's what it was.
System.text.json. Okay. Okay, so let's do this. Let's say I don't know what I'm getting back here, although let's say it's a person.
Oh, well, you need using system.text.json.serialization. Okay. And then JSON serializer, as you said. JSON
look at this.
You should find serializer if you type in an S. JSON S. Oh, you're not getting it.
It's possible that I also need one of these.
Using, yes, that's what I was just going to say. You didn't put in your first using, and that might be it. Hello, there it is. Right, so just the nuget package doesn't include the using statement. You have to always put the using in.
Now I need the value, right?
Yeah. Well, you can get that from up above, right?
Yes, I can get the value by saying, am I doing this backwards? Yeah.
Hashbang.
Is it from C#? And then you say the name of it, and it's
what's it called?
Oh, it's not from C# though. It's shared. It's
from
this one. I think you were trying to tell me that, Andy. So up here, this was defined as a value, and I can't tell you where that lives because it's not living in C# interactive, right? But ser JSON from value. So now I should be able to drop this in here, and I believe that'll deserialize it, although I don't know what we're going to get out of it. So let's do something like this. If this all works, then I should be able to do something like, say,
name or something like that. Yeah.
Now, wouldn't this be something? Wouldn't this be something?
Wouldn't this be something? That's still installed.
Okay.
Oh, start a value. I think your JSON.
Is my JSON bad?
What about the double quotes? Does it want single? No, that shouldn't matter, right?
Oh, actually, let's see. I was going to say, is the JSON bad? No, because look at this worked.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about that.
So my next question is, what's it complaining about? Invalid start of a value. I don't think there were any options that I needed, were there? Maybe. I wonder if there's
path dot person.
Deserialize it. That's all I wanted to do. So the next thing that I was wondering, although I don't think I have to do this.
No, I don't. I was wondering if that was it. I think there's a default setting on that, but maybe it didn't fix it, right? Yeah, I was thinking as you wrote it too the first time. I'm like, I think you were okay with caps.
Yeah, I think so too. It's just complaining here.
Certainly a good try from things we've all lived through in the past with some of those things, you know. Can you control Z on this?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I'm assuming you could, but you know. Okay. So deserialize person, some JSON. Do you need like a JSON as a string or something? One of those weird things?
Well, what's interesting is that it is a string. See that?
Uh,
In fact, let's take a look at what it looks like. So when we bring this into our kernel, when we say we'll share some JSON in, and look at I did the shortcut Control K Control C and it commented it. That's pretty cool. So this is all here, and it's going, yeah. Oh, I thought we were allowed
quotes.
Maybe yeah, it's got to be double quotes. You know what I wonder is, oh, well, that's interesting though, because oh no. So Newtonsoft's deserializer seems to take it, but I wonder if the system.text.json one, without setting some options, maybe does not like this, right?
Well, you can have them be like out of parity, I think, but I don't know. I didn't even notice you had done that before.
Except the thing is I actually think that this is valid, or maybe if it's not valid, let's look at the Newtonsoft one is forgiving, right? The Newtonsoft one is like, yeah, I can parse it, no problem. I'm good. But I would be willing to bet that if we poked around in the deserialization options, we could probably get it to work. But by default, who cares? By default, it seems to not be too thrilled about it. And so it printed out the text, no big deal. I'm going to comment this line with Control K, Control C. I'm going to highlight these lines and do Control K, Control U to uncomment those. And there we go. Except that we didn't get a value.
You didn't get the value.
So other than that, it was a complete success.
Other than that it didn't work, it worked. Why didn't it work? So what's weird, so, oh wait. Maybe now go back to your lowercase variable names.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like name, team, and tokens being lowercase. Like maybe it's not matching it up. So it's, you know, and then change that one at the bottom. That one, yeah. No, it still didn't do it. So it's interesting. It's not failing on the deserialization, but yet it's just taking it as null or something like that. Like it's just, you know.
Yep.
It's funny. It seems to have an issue with the property of the class, because I was playing around with some of the stuff on this end as well. We were running through and doing that, and I'm seeing the same thing, right? You could create an object, add a bunch, or make a list collection of that object, and you just run through loops, try and console print that out, you know, one of the properties, and it comes up null, or it comes up without any information in it. You can do a count of the object collection and you get that back, so it's populating, but it's just odd that it doesn't want to do anything with a dot property.
Now, to be clear, we are actually dealing with issues in system.text.json right now. We are not, in my opinion, dealing with .NET Interactive issues.
I guess what I'm saying is I'm seeing the same thing, and I'm not doing anything with system.text.json. I'm just basically create a class, create a list collection of that class, and then try and do a for loop and give me a property out of it.
Right, right.
That's odd.
So, that's from file. File. Just curious.
Wait. Oh, yeah. No. I thought I saw something, but I didn't.
I think, let's see, we know that the JSON's getting imported because of this little line we had earlier. So we know it's coming through. and it's just that some person is should be getting the value from deserialize, and we're not seeing it come back.
But if you write the console write line, some JSON definitely has the values in it, right? Can you turn on line numbers, by the way? That's a feature, right? I'm just curious.
You can in the ellipse there.
So it's on a single cell by cell basis, or do they all have them?
You can try the ellipse at the top.
No, that's interesting. Right. No, I'm just saying, a global ellipse. Oh, look at that. Maybe not.
I don't know what
so anyway, because sometimes it makes it easier for while we're talking about like lines and stuff like that. So let's see. So line 14 does return the value of some JSON, right? It was correct. So we know the JSON has the data. What if you could try the opposite? You could deserialize. I mean, you could serialize the .NET class into JSON and then serialize it back and see what that does. If you don't mind, I'm just saying, like, you're the one typing, you don't have to. Thank you. Thank you. Here's to the Giants. 0-2, baby. Is that why I have 0 tokens? Tokens equals wins.
So let's say, and what are we getting here? I'm actually not 100% sure what we're getting. So
a string, I guess. Yeah. Right. That's fine. It's a bar, right? I get what you're saying. So JSON serialize. Serialize test person. Good. And then, yeah, you can do that. But the theory is then we could then
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay.
There it is. I was just curious if it looked like totally different, but it doesn't. So now.
Well, it does in terms of formatting.
Yeah.
Why did one format nicer than the other?
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, that's okay.
And then we finally.
You need that console, yeah.
See if this all works, though. I mean, I love how the Intellisense comes through.
Yeah, so it's seeing it.
But we want to see stuff happen, right?
Yep.
Yeah, see, that worked. So it makes you wonder if the deserialization has some options.
Well, maybe there's that person.
Yeah.
Like, is it interpreting like some return characters in there? Like,
yeah.
Why?
You know what? I could fix it. I'm actually positive how to fix it now. So look at how forgiving the Newtonsoft JSON.NET, the infamous JSON.NET library is. It's forgiving enough to parse this and be like, oh, actually, you know what? It's not even so much that it's forgiving. It's just like, whatever, you gave me some string, here you go. So it's not trying to serialize this the way we were. So I think the mistake that I've been making is this, right?
Yeah.
This was the mistake. And I'm not trying to be fair because James Newton King is incredibly awesome. Is I kept saying like, man, look at how JSON.NET just rocks with this. Well, we didn't ask it to do very much. We said like, parse it and then write it. And it's like, okay, whatever you say. So let's run all this stuff again. And when we come down here, we are still not getting the person's name, which surprises me. Oh, hold on. Did I not run this? I may not have run that. Okay, now I have. And now, finally.
There it is.
So my mistake was putting into the JSON the class name, which is totally irrelevant. The class name is not relevant. It's the properties, right?
Right. And good.
Like this could be whatever. Who cares? Who cares what that is?
It doesn't matter.
What led me to that, by the way, was when we looked at the output from here. When we looked at this output, I was like, person's not here.
Right.
That's the problem. There's your problem. We need some more ball bearings.
So would you say that's duck typing, so to speak, right?
When you deal with the deserialization stuff in JSON libraries, it
looks like a duck. It's a duck.
Feels like it, sure. Yeah.
You know.
Certainly, it goes through the string and it says, you got a name? Let me see if I got a name. You got a team?
Right.
Let me see if I got a team. What would be kind of, I mean, look, we can break it, right? Because if I come back up to here and I say tokens and I say that they're arcade tokens,
it's not an integer anymore,
it's not an
right?
integer, so I would expect disaster. Where it's like, right. I couldn't get that value and turn it into a number. I just couldn't do it.
But if you change the word tokens into a different word,
yeah,
it would probably just skip it and say, I don't have a value to serialize or whatever, like that.
Right. And then I guess this lets us see that we changed it. And then now it's going to be like, well, tokens just gets the default, right?
It gets the default, right.
So, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Tokens.
We do this. What are you doing for your session at Philly.net? This is a good session right here. I like this talk.
So one of the things I pitched was a .NET Interactive, but I asked, and I need to confirm, do we want it to be a lab where people follow along, or do we just want it to be like we're doing tonight? And I'm a little torn. Obviously, the success of labs at Philly.net for over 20 years in person is remarkable. But I kind of wonder if in a totally 100% virtual format, if that's the best use. Like, you get a lot of dead air, and
yeah, and you can't see faces, you can't tell who's lost,
right?
But still, either way, this wouldn't be a horrible thing to do as a lab. Also, just let people follow along. Matter of fact, Rich is treating it as a lab right now, right, Rich? You said you were following along. So, you could have it be a bit of a hybrid there. But anyway, my point is, I think this makes for a really great demo. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and if I put a little bit more time into it, because I'm pretty sure I've got an example here. I can't necessarily bring it up, but just to give you an idea of what else you can do, because believe it or not, it's like, oh, we're not done. I mean, we are, because I don't have something ready, but there are a couple other kernels, and some of them really have my attention. Let's see. So here's one. We're not going to be able to use this tonight, but I can create a cell somewhere I can create a cell, can I? I can create a cell, and I can look at this kernel, SQL.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Now, here's what's a little odd about this. You actually have to start in the C# kernel. I know that sounds weird. And you can do something like this. You can say connect. Connect is the magic word. And the kernel name is MS SQL. And then you say kernel name, and what you do is you give your database some friendly name. So maybe it's like MyDB. It could be anything. It could be whatever you want. This is just a variable name. And now here you put a connection string. Now this isn't going to work. But when I click on this, what do you mean required?
Look at that. Yeah. Well, you got something wrong. MySQL. MS SQL is what it doesn't like. Unrecognized command or argument. Okay. Command was not provided. MS SQL is probably not what you start with.
Yeah. You know what? I forgot.
Nuget.
Yeah, we got to bring in nuget. And here's where this is actually kind of exciting, right? Because this sort of makes me wonder, can I extend this just on my own without like having to get into all of the nitty gritty about how it works? But check this out. Okay. Did I spell something wrong?
Using?
They're using, right?
You would have to have some kind of using, although unless connect sort of implies, because it's one of the magic commands.
So I don't have it in this sample that I'm looking at here. I wonder if I got to do it this way. First, the packages have to be installed.
Yeah, that's kind of what we did last time, right? Remember that? Yeah.
Right. And then let's create another thing here. Obviously, this connection string goes nowhere. And I'm not going to tell you that this is like, certainly this, I could see this experience being improved upon. But once I bring this package in and then do this, I don't think this is going to work because I think it tries to connect, right?
Yeah, perfect.
But if that connection
it knows it's not a connection string.
Yeah, if this connection succeeds, you now have this MyDB, and what you can do, and this is where I'm going to need to have like an Azure SQL database ready, right? Then you can do stuff like this. You can say, and you bring in the SQL kernel, but you say the name of whatever you've done. And now you can start typing SQL, and that works.
Yeah, that's pretty slick.
And I've tested this out, and I've gotten it working, but I don't have it working in an environment that I have access to right here on this machine tonight. So, what I really need is an Azure SQL database that I can reach by connection string, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I say, hey, look at that. I can talk to SQL now. There's no sharing that I know of out of SQL, because what I think would be really slick is if I could share out of SQL and get it into some kind of data structure. And I don't know if the answer here is a data reader. That feels a little quaint to me. But just into some kind of data structure that I could now use from JavaScript, from C#, from F#, because I could pull something out of a database and then maybe graph it interactively.
Yeah, but if you were going to do that, wouldn't you just use like entity framework?
You can, and that is the workaround that people cite, is use entity framework here in .NET Interactive. Now, but what if what it is I'm trying to teach is SQL, T-SQL right here, or maybe not even teach.
Well, then you could.
I just want to document it.
Yeah. But you could still execute T-SQL and teach T-SQL and all that. You're just not going to be able to display the data in, like you said, in a graph or something like that.
Yeah. What you get is you get the result set.
Those are two different goals.
The result set pops up just like it would pop up if you were in Azure Data Studio or in SQL Server Management Studio. The result set just pops right up. But I think that's cool that here we have a SQL interactive. I don't know that there's any others in here. Oh, there's a PowerShell interactive, which I have no demo for whatsoever. Or write Markdown. And
I mean, isn't PowerShell interactive just PowerShell?
Well, once again,
PowerShell is like interactive already, isn't it?
I suppose I'm just thinking in my head, like, to me, that you've taken on notebooks for a reason, and one is because what I kind of think is neat about notebooks is I could see myself not. I keep talking about educational opportunities, but what if it was just like a step-by-step run book? So replace your script file that you would highlight code little by little and run little by little, and it's now truly a run book where you go, let me try step one, let me look at the results, yep, I'm happy with that, let me try step two, let me try step three. For those use cases where you need a little bit, you need to bring some quick code and scripts together, but you don't necessarily want to turn it into a full-blown application. If you use it just enough that you want to have it around. That's just some thoughts, right? Just some thoughts.
Yeah, you could use this as a troubleshooting workbook for applications and things like that, where you have, like, again, you have those instructions built right in. So, the application not working, try this, right? And you run the script and it, and then you say, all right, if this is the problem, try running this script to fix it or something like that. Maybe you have some bad data.
Check the database.
Right. It'd be pretty cool. Like run books. Like, I like that idea.
Yeah. And I'm sure there are more ideas. I just was thinking, so .NET, my understanding is .NET 5, the .NET 5 SDK is in here. It's made me wonder things like what is available. Like, in fact, let me get a brand new cell. If I'm in C# land, how far can I go with the runtime? I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure. So if I did something like I said, age equals 15, and then I had like, we have the old-fashioned switch statement, right, where I say switch age, and I say case, and we can do this now in switch statements now, can't we? Can't we do this? Can't we say case under 18? And I think we can do that now.
Ooh, yeah, it's not barking at you. I told you.
Oh, well, because we're not done yet.
Right. No, that doesn't look.
I don't have a break statement either. Oops. Oops. I hate the caps lock key.
Caps lock doesn't.
Like, we don't need it. It's an artifact of a different time, in my opinion. Still doesn't like something though, right? Maybe we can't do this, or
maybe you need space between a greater than. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so that works, right? That works. Cool. And we can do something like this, where we can say, okay, so the reason I actually, there is a reason why I'm doing this. Gosh, I keep hitting caps lock.
Caps lock in there again. You know what's great? The senior would type it with caps lock on there.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason I did that is because I wanted to try. How does this work again? Switch expressions. How do they work? I think they look like this. All right. Switch age, and then you.
What you got?
I gotta remember how to do switch expressions. But I specifically wanted to see if these were supported. That's all.
I forget how you even type that. I mean, I could Google it real quick.
Okay, I got it.
Google faster than I do.
This is probably not the only way to do this, but actually, I needed it by age. So it looks like this. Now this is complaining because you're not done yet. That's what it's complaining about. And now it should complain. Now it should complain that you haven't handled everything. So it looks like it's working. This tells me that this is working.
Yeah, the fact that it's giving you anything.
Yeah, and switch expressions are C#8. So that's not super new. I mean, it's pretty new, but it's not C#9. And the only reason why I
How do
kind
you
of
find out? Isn't there a command you can run?
To do what?
Is there a command you can run to say what? So you're not really in a console or something, but what .NET, what C# version do I have or something like that? I guess I don't know how you would do that.
I admit to not
in the config or something like that.
So, is this going to work? If I say, well, this is going to be that.
Right, not console.write line anymore. Yep.
So that works. Except what's cool, and let me tell you right here, the compiler does not help us recognize that we do not have an answer for adults, but the switch expression does. It helps us. It says, hey, you didn't cover everything. So then you go, oh, that's right. You're totally right. I didn't cover senior citizens. Man, you're right. And so you do this, and then you even have a leftover comma there, which is perfectly valid. And then you go, you're ready to go for pizza, and it's like, hold on, you still didn't handle all the possible values. You're like, wow, that's amazing. And that's when you go, well, I guess everyone else is just an adult. So you say discard, because just take all the remaining, and I don't really care what the value is. I don't need you to have it. And that is what I like about switch expressions. Although I still don't know that it handled everything, did it? It's like, hey, what if somebody's 18?
Well, that should.
Like, okay, now you got it. Now you got it. Now you
Why
got
wouldn't why wouldn't 18 work if you had less than 18 and you had greater than 65? So that would mean anybody that's there is. See, this should work. I think somehow that it wasn't catching up.
No, it works now. You're right. It works now because, like, I could put in 18, can I? And I can say console dot write line.
18's an adult. Yeah.
And I can come in here, get person type, and I'll even put in 18. And I'm sure I've missed something here. I've missed this. And it says, yeah, an adult.
First one's from the up top part. Yeah, right.
So you're right. You're right that it just wasn't correct. But I like that. I like that about switch expressions. And whereas right now, it's like, sure, I'll work, but oh, you blew up. The non-exhaustive switch expression failed to match.
Now what does it say on the what does the tooltip say now? Now that you took it back out, it's still just saying that 18 is not covered, right?
Right.
Yeah. For example, the pattern 18 is not covered. Yeah.
So not that this has anything to do with notebooks. I'm just a big fan of switch expressions being exhaustive. And that's all. That's it. That's like a PSA. That's got nothing to do with notebooks. So like Chop says...
bonus material. That's what we call bonus material.
Yeah, it's bonus material. So, Andy, you were asking like what's a good topic? And I have been looking at a lot of these new features that have come into C#, and they remind a lot of developers of F#. And it got me thinking like, hey, there's a topic, right? Like learning F# by way of what you already know. To kind of... I feel like if you've watched F# intro sessions, I don't care what they are, videos, whatever, oftentimes a seasoned developer who's very experienced with C# gets they walk out of there and they're like, that was cool, but I'm not sure how I would get started, That's how I felt for many, many years. So I kind of feel like there's still a way to bridge that gap, and I've been thinking about that for a long time. But that's got absolutely nothing to do with notebooks, which is what we're working on tonight. Well, hopefully the audio's been okay, and that our recording isn't terrible later.
Yeah, I mean, earlier people were listening in and didn't mention anything about the audio being bad, but thanks, Chops, for the heads up.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
So, what do you think? Should we wrap this one up? I mean, this is good.
Yeah, we did a lot of stuff. Hopefully, if you've been watching, you're excited to get started with notebooks. And again, you just need Visual Studio Code, and you do need. Let's be fair. Let me go make sure I get everything out of the README, because you do need. It does say in here what you need to get started, right? It's got a minimum. I thought it did. You need the .NET 5 SDK. So you got to install that. You could do that simply. Right?
VS Code won't do that for you? Like, it won't tell you that?
I actually can't tell you for sure if it will tell you.
Right.
And the reason I say that is because I had it installed already. Yeah, so.
I get it.
And then you need the extension, which is the .NET Interactive extension. And then you create a file with the extension IPYNB. And we got a little message down here that said like .NET Interactive kernel is installing or something like that. And then we were off and running, writing in different languages and sharing variables and stuff like that. Pretty cool.
I will say that I thought that the extension IPYNB was Python Notebook, Pi Notebook. But maybe that's just been maybe it was, because maybe these things were Python at one point, and now it just doesn't matter, or something like that, because this wasn't a Python notebook. But and I could just be totally wrong. I just thought that's what PYNB stood for,
I agree with you. I wonder if, to your point, it's just sort of been co-opted in a way, right? And like every notebook is an IPYNB. Yeah.
Well, so. It's not. It's actually JPYNB.
Oh, see, even better. Oh, it probably was Jupyter, right?
Right.
JPYNB.
Aha.
So this is an interactive.
Okay. Yeah, I got you.
Oh.
I should.
Interesting. JP. Jupyter. Well, maybe it was Jupyter Python Notebook, and now it's Interactive Python Notebook or something like that. But it's interesting. Doesn't matter because it works great.
Yeah. Cool stuff. I enjoyed playing with this, and so I'm glad that we got to look at it, and hopefully people watching in the future on YouTube get some decent audio. I apologize, man, that would stink if we didn't. But don't forget to check out our videos at youtube.com/thedevtalkshow, and that's where you can find all the recordings, including this one. So if you're watching in the future, hopefully you enjoyed it, and let us know what you think about .NET Interactives. Put something in the comments. Click the like button. Let us know what you think. If this is the kind of content you want to see.
That like button.
Yeah. So yeah.
Smash it.
Cool. I think I'm ready here with these buttons that are supposed to work. We're gonna find out. We're gonna find out if I can close the show in one button, Andy, after we get let out here.
I have confidence in you. I think that's a cue for you to you're telling me to maybe bring us out of here. And if you weren't, I'm going to do it anyway. So thanks for being here with us this week. It's been fun. Chris, great job putting this one together. I learned some cool stuff here today. I think you showed some really great tips, and Rich, I hope you had fun too. And yeah, and with that, let's take it out of here. We will see you next week on the Dev Talk Show.